Welcome guys! In this video, I'll be showing you how to build a proper DPS Chongyun in Genshin Impact. I'll go over the basic and mechanical skills, weapons, artifacts, and one team composition that you need in order to do DPS. I broke the video down in sections, so if you want to skip to a specific section where I talk about a particular topic, feel free to click on these timestamps in the description below. Let's get started. First up, let's talk about Chongyun's normal attack. This skill is a 4-hit consecutive strike that you should prioritize in upgrading if you are maining Chongyun as a DPS. One thing to implement into your game if you haven't already is animation cancelling. This is a way to skip the ability animation, which allows you to fit in more attack, increasing your overall damage. One way to perform this is after you attack, you dash right after it. You can essentially save time that you will otherwise lose. Let's watch this side by side. As you can see, the one on the right performs more attack in the same time frame. I would say animation cancelling is a knowledge that is essential to maximizing your damage output. Oh, and you can also use your elemental burst or skill to cancel the animation. Whether you choose to dash or use your elemental skill to cancel is situational. Chongyun's elemental skill lays out a cryo frost field on the ground. This changes your normal attack into cryo elemental damage. Other characters that wield a sword, claymore, or polearm are also affected by this, which leads into some interesting combinations that I will go over in another video. It is also important to note that Chongyun's passive, Steady Breathing, increased normal attack speed by 8%. When a cryo field disappears, a blade will be summoned and strike nearby enemies. Chongyun's elemental burst skill does a decent amount of burst damage. Smaller enemies get knocked down by the skill as well. I like to use my elemental burst after Chongyun's elemental skill disappears because this will debuff the enemy with cryo resistant, so the elemental burst does more damage. Now let's talk about weapons. These three weapons are my recommended weapons for a DPS Chongyun build. There's methods from gacha and a method that is completely free to play. Wolf's Gravestone is the best claymore in the game that you have to roll in the gacha to get. In addition to its high base attack, this weapon affects skills with talent levels, which will heavily outclass any other claymore in the game. If you happen to have this weapon and want to build Chongyun as a DPS, use this weapon. You can also go with the prototype Animus, which you can get from crafting and embrace the free-to-play life. This weapon is very viable and holds its own against other 4-star gacha claymores. Furthermore, you can eventually get refinement level 5 on this weapon since it's not from a gacha, if it ever drops for you. But if you're unlucky like me, I never gotten one before, so I wouldn't know what it's like. Lastly, if you roll a gacha, you should have some debate clubs sitting around in your inventory. This weapon is also really good for Chongyun, and it is a good budget option if you don't have the other two weapons. Before I get into artifact recommendations for Chongyun, I just want you guys to know that I am not going to recommend specific stats to aim for, because it depends heavily on your team comp, your playstyle, and many RNG factors. A general idea is to prioritize attack stats like percent attack, crit damage, and crit rate. However, if you guys have a question on specific stat lines on artifacts, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. In early game, you should get a combination of 2-piece Resolution of Sojourner and pair it up with a 2-piece Berserker set. Resolution of Sojourner artifacts can be found in adventure level up rewards and chests. You can also find Berserker pieces in chests throughout your time exploring the map. In mid to late game, start focusing on getting the gladiator sets. You can find them from defeating bosses and opening rewards from Spiral Abyss boxes for clearing floors. You can keep using your Berserker set, but just gradually replace everything with the gladiator set, because the 4-set effect from the gladiator is probably the best in slot artifact for a DPS Chongyun right now. For endgame, I really want to highlight the Noblest Oblige 4-set. Chongyun's kit with C2 Constellation have the potential to make use of the 4-set effect uptime. With that, Chongyun's bursts have the potential to dish out very high damage. However, I haven't really tested that out yet, but I do have some plans to cover it in another video. Until a Cryo artifact set comes out, the 4-set Gladiator will dish out the most consistent damage in my opinion. One team comp I really recommend is to go with the Shatter comp. What this team does is Xinqiu applies wet on enemies, and Chongyun just cleaves and repeatedly smash the frozen enemies while doing shatter damage. Shatter damage shows up as a white damage line that scales with your character level and elemental mastery. I would say to look for gear with elemental mastery substats if you want to go with this team comp. I personally really enjoy using Chongyun with this team setup because you can control the enemies pretty well and have a good uptime on them. I put Kaya in this comp for elemental resonance. The 15% crit rate will boost Chongyun's damage even further. I choose Kaya for accessibility, but you can go with Kiki or Diona as well if you have them. For the 4th spot, Anemo characters such as Sucrose and Venti that can swirl and gather enemies with their skills work really well in this comp. Not to mention if you build a Viridescent Veneer's 4-piece set on them, you will see even more significant damage due to the set debuff. I would even go as far to say it is mandatory to bring an Anemo character to maximize your damage output. Thank you for taking the time to watch this guide. I hope you found the guide useful. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button on the screen. I am planning on uploading videos every week and I have new exciting content coming soon. Until next time.